My 4 years of Army. Life story. I joined the US Army at 28 as an Asian American, and honestly, I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. COVID had just hit, everything felt stalled, and a few people kept telling me, "Why don't you just join the Army?" At some point I thought, screw it. I had nothing else going on, so why not? I walked into a recruiting station and told them I wanted to ship out as soon as possible. The recruiter loved that. 3 days. That's all it took to finish the paperwork and take the ASVAB. I hadn't done basic high school math in over 10 years, so even the recruiter was surprised by my score. Next was MEPS. I passed the physical, and then came job selection, what the Army calls MOS selection. That part surprised me the most. I had way more options than I expected. I told the recruiter I wanted whatever had the shortest AIT, Advanced Individual Training, and would get me out the door fast. I'll tell you what MOS I chose later. Once I picked my job, I signed the contract, took the oath of enlistment, and that was it. The whole process moved insanely fast. Less than 10 days later, I was packed, sitting on a bus, and headed to basic combat training, also known as BCT. My BCT took place at Fort Leonard Wood, and I was supposed to start at reception, Building 3-5. Because of COVID, though, the whole process was different than usual. Normally, recruits get dropped off at the reception hall, where you're officially processed. That means paperwork, blood draws, shots, basically every administrative thing you can imagine. But at Fort Leonard Wood, instead of the reception hall, we were dropped off somewhere else entirely, just to pick up our linens. I'll never forget that first day. Around 6 a.m., after grabbing our linens, we marched to the barracks, and it honestly felt like a movie scene. It was dark, cold, misty, heavy fog everywhere. You could barely see 10 feet in front of you, and trainees were running around nonstop, full of this intense, chaotic energy. Drill sergeants yelling, people scrambling. It was overwhelming, and it made one hell of a first impression. Made my blood boil, and made me feel like it was full of energy. Well, that energy lasted about 1 minute because they just handed me my breakfast. We finally sat down and were handed MRE, meals ready to eat. It was my first time ever having one. What I didn't know was that you could heat them up. That's how I learned I absolutely hate cold spaghetti. After breakfast, we had our temperatures checked, COVID rules, and then we finally moved into the barracks. Because of the pandemic, we spent 2 full weeks stuck with the same group of people before being split into our actual platoons. So before training even really started, we were already stuck together, sleeping, eating, and figuring things out as one weird temporary family. Before I ever shipped to BCT, I was out of shape, and this was right when COVID had just hit. So like any sane person about to do something terrifying, I went online. That's where I learned about something called the shark attack, and smoked me with push-ups all day. Honestly, I thought it was going to be brutal and extremely annoying, but none of that happened. Basic combat training is 10 weeks long and normally broken into 3 phases: red, white, and blue. But because of COVID, the Army added a 4th one, yellow phase. Yellow phase was basically quarantine, 2 weeks of it. During that time, we still weren't assigned to our actual platoons yet, so the drill sergeants in charge of our group eased us into things. Training was slower, more controlled. It wasn't full-on BCT chaos yet. It was reception mixed with the very beginning of red phase. Looking back, yellow phase was this strange limbo. Not civilians anymore, but not really trainees either. Because of that, there was a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of cleaning the barracks, and a lot of time just sitting around talking with other trainees. The drill sergeants told us straight up that during the first 2 weeks, we wouldn't be doing much physical training. COVID cases were going up, so they were being cautious. Instead, they issued us white masks. They told us, a good soldier knows how to keep and maintain a clean white mask, which sounded great in theory. In reality, it was disgusting. Watching those masks slowly turn different shades of gray, brown, and who knows what was honestly unpleasant. And that was when it really hit me. This was BCT, but on hard mode, sanitation-wise. After about 2 days, a buddy and I mysteriously lost our white masks. The drill sergeants were not impressed. As punishment, we had to do 10 push-ups, which honestly felt like a bargain. After that, they let us use our own black masks. Totally worth it. During yellow phase, I learned very quickly that COVID was real. We were supposed to start with around 250 trainees. By the time reception wrapped up, we had lost over 50 of them to COVID. They were isolated and pushed back to restart training later. A big portion of those losses were females. At the time, no one really explained why. Later on, once I was in my actual platoon, one of the female trainees filled me in. Let's just say, yellow phase quarantine gave some people a little too much time, and some folks were experimenting with life. PG-13 and up. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Food-wise, yellow phase was rough. No DFAC, which is the dining facility. We had MRE for breakfast, MRE for lunch, and hot chow for dinner. Once we hit red phase, things improved a little. Hot breakfast, MRE for lunch, hot dinner. But we still didn't actually eat at the DFAC until later in BCT. So for a while, BCT was less about training and more about surviving MRE and not catching COVID. During yellow phase, I learned a lot of interesting lessons. One of the biggest was this: watch what you say, because it will absolutely come back and bite you. There was one trainee who didn't shower for 3 days, and yeah, it got bad. His bunkmates tried telling him, other people mentioned it too. Eventually, a few jokes were made about how bad he smelled. Hindsight 2020, that didn't go over well. The guy completely lost his cool and went on a rant, saying that when we got to the shooting range, he'd remember whoever made fun of him with bullets in their bodies. Crazy, right? People immediately reported what he said to the drill sergeant. Things escalated fast after that. Long story short, a handful of trainees ended up receiving EO counseling. The message was clear: bullying other trainees, joking or not, wasn't going to fly. And if anyone got EO'd again, it could lead to serious consequences, like pay, demotion, or even getting kicked out of BCT and the Army. That was one of those early moments where it really sank in. That's when I really learned how serious the Army is about equal opportunity, EO. EO exists to make sure everyone is treated fairly. It applies to soldiers, family members, and even Department of the Army civilians. The Army doesn't mess around with discrimination or harassment based on race, color, gender, religion, national origin, or sexual orientation. In our case, the focus wasn't about punishing people. It was about stopping things before they got worse and keeping the unit functional. A handful of trainees ended up getting EO counseling. And the message was clear: even jokes can cross lines. Leadership made it very clear that EO is everyone's responsibility. Strong units are built by removing barriers and maintaining mutual respect, not by letting things slide. And it doesn't just apply during training or on post. EO follows you everywhere. On duty, off duty, all the time. That was one of my first real lessons in BCT. Your words matter, intent doesn't always outweigh impact. And the Army will step in fast when discipline or respect breaks down. BCT isn't just about physical training. It's about discipline, accountability, and learning how quickly words can turn into real problems. When our quarantine officially ended, we were finally assigned to our platoon. Right away, things felt off. Normally in BCT, a platoon is supposed to have 2 drill sergeants and 1 senior drill sergeant. That was not our reality. Our senior drill sergeant was brand new and had other things going on. So during yellow phase and early red phase, we barely saw him. The other drill sergeant had actually been the senior drill sergeant for our platoon before. He had already served his time and was supposed to be reassigned. But because of COVID, he got stuck with us. So for the first few weeks of BCT, our platoon was basically running with 1 drill sergeant. And even then, he had his own issues to deal with.